You guys probably seen this commercial, right?
It'll teach your kids all about President Trump's accomplishments and his vision.
This company, the Kids Guide or freekidsguide.com or whatever, they sell these propaganda books. This one is called Exposing the Lies About America. And it is as insane as you would think. Some of the lies include the lies about early America, the lies about slavery, the lies about civil rights. I mean, we've got some humdingers here. So let's just kind of glance through this book, see what we got going on. Let's see what Mike Huckabee wants Magapotamian children to know about America. I'm not well informed on colonization, so I'm not going to touch that one right now. I'm going to scroll through so that you guys can see each page if you want to stop and read it. But I'm not well informed on colonization, so I'm actually going to skip that one for the moment. Anyway, yeah, we're going to look at like each page. I just want you guys to have an opportunity to kind of glance through on your own if you want to, if it's interesting to you. And this is the last page, so yeah. I have Native American ancestry. I am I don't I don't think I'm registered with the tribe. My grandmother is registered with the tribe. I think my mom is registered with the tribe. I could also register if I chose, but too many teachers and global politicians like to blame America for the world's historical problems. They often point fingers at Christopher Columbus's arrival in the Americas as the beginning of a brutal period of colonialism and disease. The story goes that the natives of North and South America were spiritual people who protected their environment and lived in peace and harmony. Oh boy, I can already tell this is going to be psychotic. While it's undoubtedly true that Christopher Columbus did begin a period of colonial expansion led by the Spanish, French, Portuguese, and British, the native tribes Columbus found were not exactly what we've been taught. I'll tell you what happened when Columbus came here. Let me just verify this. He landed on the Bahamas Islands, possibly Ganahani, which Columbus renamed San Salvador. And the people, it was the Taino people. That's what they were called, the Tainos. They didn't have concepts for the things that we have concepts for today. Like their understanding of religion was completely different. And when Christopher Columbus came off of the boat, they treated him so well. They welcomed him. They didn't have a concept of ownership in the same way. So if somebody wanted something, they would just ask for it and they would give it to them. Even if like the Taino people really needed that thing, they assumed that nobody would try to take from them unless they really needed it. So Christopher Columbus and his crew just took from them, just took whatever they wanted. Here's a quote from Christopher Columbus in his journal. They are very gentle and without knowledge of what is evil, nor do they murder or steal. They would make fine servants. They should be good servants. They can easily be made Christians. He was impressed by their nakedness and decorative body paint, their use of gold ornaments, which piqued his interest in finding gold-rich lands, which, by the way, they didn't have, like, a bunch of gold around. It was very little, but he was interested in finding more of it, and that motivated him to come back with more people later. Anyway, their generosity, especially in trade, piqued his interest too, offering parrots, cotton, and food freely. Yeah, they didn't have a concept of ownership. Columbus quickly shifted from peaceful interaction to colonial exploitation. He kidnapped several Taino to take back to Spain. Some died en route. When he returned on later voyages, he implemented tribute systems that demanded gold from the Taino. Those who failed to deliver were punished, often with mutilation or death, i.e., cutting their arms off, for example, or their legs, or torturing them, or just killing them if they couldn't get enough gold. Within decades, due to enslavement, violence, and European diseases like smallpox, up to 90% of the Taino population perished. So he brings the Tainos back to, like, Europe and enslaves them. The ones that he brought back, they were enslaved. They were so incredibly unhappy with their condition. I believe that they checked out. I'm trying to say this in a monetizer-friendly way. I believe that they checked out, rather than be enslaved. I mean, Christopher Columbus was a brutal, evil, monstrous son of a bitch. Do I think we should change the name of Columbus Day? Yeah, of course we should. Of course we should change the name. He's a monster. I still call it Columbus Day because that's what everyone else knows it as, but we should definitely change the name. Anyway, let's continue. While it's undoubtedly true that Christopher Columbus did begin a period of colonial expansion led by the Spanish, French, Portuguese, and British, the native tribes Columbus found were not exactly what we've been taught. Okay, tell me about these Taínos that I've been taught incorrectly about. While Native American culture is filled with beautiful and spiritual aspects, many tribes and nations conquered others and colonized. Yeah, we're talking about the tribes that Christopher Columbus encountered. Remember the tribes he found? Quote unquote, that's what you just said in the book. Some even massacred and enslaved their enemies with no regard for protecting their cultures or the environment. There was a neighboring tribe to the Taínos who was more violent. I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but I think that the Taínos ended up teaming up with them, with the more violent tribe, to fight against Columbus and his crew. And if I remember correctly, I believe that Columbus basically burned the entire thing to the ground. Everything just burned to the ground. Their whole village, all of their killed people wantonly. I mean, he was like an evil human being. But, I notice that they're not talking about any of that in this book. I can't help but notice they haven't said a damn negative thing about Columbus, not one. Many North American Native American tribes hunted buffalo for food and did so very cruelly. They would drive entire herds of buffalo off high cliffs, killing massive numbers of them in the fall. Are you serious right now? They're hunting for food! Is this even real? Probably not. Let me just find out. Partially based in truth, but deeply misleading and propagandistic in tone, especially when it labels Native American hunting practices as very cruel. Here's what's true. Yes, some Native American tribes, especially on the Great Plains, did use buffalo jumps, also called bison jumps, as hunting techniques. They would drive herds of American bison toward cliffs where the animals would fall and die from the impact. This method was used by tribes like the Blackfoot, the Plains Cree, the Assiniboine, and others long before the arrival of Europeans. I'm from the Mohegan tribe. States like Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump in Alberta, Canada, provide archaeological evidence of this practice going back thousands of years. Sites like Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump? There's an actual place called Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump? Okay. Here's what's misleading and or wrong. Very cruel is a judgmental framing. Reflects a Eurocentric moral standard, applying modern views about animal cruelty to indigenous people surviving in pre-industrial contexts. The implication that this was mass waste is false. They used the meat for food. They used the hides for clothing, shelter, and tools. They used the bones for tools and weapons, tendons in sinew for thread. The hunting technique was not wasteful by their cultural standards. It was efficient and communal. And it omits the context of balance and sustainability. Native tribes practiced hunting with cultural and spiritual respect for the animals and land. The near extinction of the bison happened after European colonization due to commercial slaughter and U.S. policies aimed at starving indigenous populations, not because of indigenous hunting practices. Yeah, the U.S. tried to kill the bison population to starve the Native Americans. Really. Native tribes would also set vast and deadly wildfires to clear large areas of land so they could farm and grow more food. Oh my God, this book is so vile and evil. They are literally describing standard practice today. We burn down areas of like land to prep it for being farmland. Everybody does that. Everybody has always done that. But notice how they frame it. Vast and deadly wildfires. Vast and deadly. There's plenty of evidence that disease and epidemics killed native peoples long before the arrival of European explorers. Oh, so Christopher Columbus, he didn't bring any diseases with him at all that like contributed to the death of the Native Americans in the United States or in the Americas. Okay, got it. Meanwhile, what took place in America was very different. The colonization of America brought about one of the most transformative periods in world history. This is vile, like really f***ing disgusting. This book is, right? Okay, ready? Buckle up for this one. Exposing the lies about slavery in America. Oh, this is going to be good. One of the more troubling collections of lies told today deals with the period of slavery in America. The story goes that European colonists and American settlers were racist invaders who created the worst system of enslavement in world history. Well, I gotta say, the American system of slavery, to my understanding, was uniquely bad, was uniquely evil, in that it was chattel slavery. It was full ownership of human beings, where slavery in the past, it was more like you work to pay off your debt and then you're free. And it wasn't, they didn't treat them the same way. They literally treated people like animals in the United States. Again, like, there were places in history, times and places where these things took place, of course, but America was uniquely evil with the way that it did slavery. Why are you downplaying this? Who the is arguing that slavery was not bad in the United States? Are you kidding me? Why am I even sitting here saying this? Of course it was bad. Why would you defend this? Well, it's true that European colonial powers like Britain, Spain, Portugal, and France turned the capture, exploitation, and enslavement of other people into a global business that supported their empires and economies. Okay, why are they about to argue against this? What we've been taught differs significantly from reality. Why? Why did you choose this thing to try to propagandize to kids about? Why would anybody choose to defend slavery or downplay it? As immoral and terrible as the practice of slavery is, nearly every civilization on Earth has enslaved others, including Europeans, Native Americans, Asians, Middle Easterners, and Africans. We're not talking about all of those people. We're talking about America. When people are talking about American slavery, we're addressing the problems created by American slavery. His response to kindness was theft and murder. Yeah, absolutely. That was Christopher Columbus's response to kindness. I was thinking to myself, like, okay, maybe he was kind of a bad guy, but we got to take it within the context of the time and the people. No, he was just a bad guy. There is no context that makes this better. He is an evil human being. He was evil back then, and he is evil today. There is no, like, historical context that fixes what Christopher Columbus did. You know, it was super common to use the N-word back 100 years ago, say. Not everybody that said the N-word was like an evil to the core monster, because that was what they called people at the time. Like, there's some historical context to that. There's no historical context fix this. None. He was just an absolute insane monster. My N-word example is probably bad. I should have said the word Negro instead, from the 70s. That is deprecated now. Anyway. Various forms of enslavement, such as forced labor, debt slavery, and child exploitation, still occur in about 90% of the nations of the world. Yeah, and that's bad, and we should fight against that, right? Why are you defending this? I don't understand. The reality is that America has been the world leader in fighting enslavement. No. But okay. Everyone had slaves, so it makes it excusable, right? Like, I don't understand what, like, really think about what the point of this is. Okay, so they make a book for children. They're trying to communicate a message to children. What is the message that they want to communicate? The message is that slavery wasn't that bad. They're trying to show kids that it was, I guess, like a black spot or whatever, but it wasn't terrible. Like, a bunch of other people did it too anyway. What's the point? Why are you doing this? Remember the Pilgrims, Puritans, Quakers, and others who followed to settle in America? Yes, I do, in fact. Inspired by the Bible story of Moses and the exodus of the Jewish people out of enslavement in Egypt, these groups saw the enslavement of others as against God's laws. No, that's just not true. That's a lie. These people saw the enslavement of others as part of God's law, because it's in God's law. He explains in the Bible how to enslave people and who you can pick from the nations around you. And now, as it happens, Christians will always find a pretext for their already existing beliefs. So, yeah, there were some around that were saying that it was against God's law. But the people that were enslaving others were using the Bible as their justification for enslaving. The point is that both sides use the Bible how they see fit to back up their already existing beliefs. That's the bottom line here. America's founding fathers felt the same way, which is why our Declaration of Independence and Constitution were designed to give freedom and rights to all. But they weren't. That's the thing. They weren't. They didn't give freedom to all. Do you not remember like the 3/5 compromise where they decided black people counted as 3/5 of people for voting purposes? Right? Let me just verify this. 1787 Constitutional Convention. It addressed how enslaved people would be counted when determining a state's population for two key purposes: representation in Congress and taxation. Delegates agreed that each enslaved person would count as 3/5 of a person for purposes of both representation and taxation. Jesus Christ, man. America even went to war over the issue after the Southern American states broke off from the rest and created their own nation. The Civil War was fought to end slavery in the United States. Dude, I love how they framed this up to be phrased in such a way that it seems like the Southern states were the good guys in the Civil War that were trying to end slavery. America went to war after the Southern American states broke off and created their own nation. The war was fought to end slavery in the U.S. Like, I don't understand why somebody would write all of this trash. America's founding documents, the Bible, and our God-given rights not only inspired the end of slavery in America, but also set an example for the world. Exposing lies about capitalism, about freedom of speech, about the right to bear arms. Oh my God, dude. And then finally, the truth shall set you free. The truth shall set you free. Let's just look at this. The truth shall set you. Oh my God, this is a really hard sentence to say for some reason. The truth shall set you free. Let's look at the truth. The truth shall set you free section. God, am I having a stroke right now? Next time somebody tries to teach or tell you lies about America, you'll have the facts to push back. The lie? America is an evil colonial power that exploits others. The truth? All nations and people throughout the history of the world have colonized and conquered other lands. That doesn't make it right, but America today is far more of a mixed melting pot of many cultures than most all other nations on Earth. Wow, it's interesting that they acknowledge that colonialism is wrong, but they say others did it too, and people are better off for knowing America. Okay, let me just look here. Let me give an explanation because, like I said, I don't know much about colonialism, so I didn't want to address it at first, but let me just give a little bit of a rundown here. Colonialism is when a powerful country goes to another place, takes control of it, and uses it to make itself richer and stronger. I'm trying to think of a good example. So Britain goes to South Africa. I don't know the exact chain of events, so don't take this literally. I may be making this up completely. They send people to South Africa to take control of the government, as they did, I believe, and to mine like diamonds and emeralds and precious metals and stuff like that and send it all back to Britain. And the people there are being controlled by basically like a totalitarian regime, and they're not benefiting from the people that are taking their rights, their mineral rights, their assets, taking their things. That's what colonialism is. It is bad, period. And I don't give a shit who else did it. It's completely irrelevant to me. It's bad. Oh my God. Okay, check this out. Exposing the lies about freedom of speech. The truth, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution states that the government is forbidden from interfering in the freedom of speech or the press. Well, not exactly, but okay, whatever. I know it's about to, I'm nitpicking this because it's important to. How can we challenge unfair rules and leaders without the God-given right to call them out? This is because free speech is not just some benefit you get in America. It's the very basis of our nation, and here's why. The framers of the U.S. Constitution knew the danger of letting the government determine what the people could or could not do or say. Enslaved people cannot say what they think and feel. Free people have this God-given right. Here are some telling examples of why the First Amendment is so important and why attempts to censor it are very dangerous. Oh, buckle up. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many in the government and media made frightening demands of the people, including closing churches and forcing masks and vaccines. Many of these claims were misleading and some were utterly false. No, it's just not true. It's just a made-up, fictitious lie. This whole bit about closing churches, state level, local governments requested of churches, of most churches, either hold services on Zoom or hold services outside, like in the parking lot, or space your chairs out about 6 feet and wear masks and check temperatures at the door. And instead of doing literally any of those things, churches refuse to do anything. There's a legitimate, full-blown pandemic raging through society, people dying so much that we were putting them in giant refrigerator trucks because the hospitals were too overloaded. And you can't just space the chairs out. Just space the chairs out, take temperatures at the door, wear masks. You can't do that simple thing, really. And for the record, there was no real enforcement of any of this stuff, of them telling churches they can't meet or any of that. They were always allowed to meet. It was a matter of whether they were going to huddle together and start kissing each other on the lips to spread disease as much as they possibly could, or being responsible about it, holding service outside or something, or spacing chairs out. Also, government made these demands. I mean, Donald Trump was the president at the time, so, and forcing masks and vaccines. At no point ever was there a mandate. Nobody was forced to get a vaccine at any point ever. There was no federal lockdown. There's no federal vaccine mandate. There's no federal mask mandate. Most companies chose not to let people in if they weren't vaccinated or wearing a mask. That was a company level choice. It's not the government interfering in anything. There were some states that had state level lockdowns, but the government pumped money into the system to make sure that the economy didn't completely go belly up. There was one case where I believe in New York State, there were some people working at a hospital that were basically required to get vaccinated if they're going to continue to work in healthcare facilities, especially in old folks' homes, like nursing homes and stuff. They were mandated to get vaccinated or work somewhere else. Because we're in the middle of a fucking pandemic. You don't want to get vaccinated, then don't. But you can't be around old people and not be vaccinated. That was the only vaccine mandate. And I think it was actually 5,000 people or something that were subjected to this mandate. I don't even remember. It was very, very low. So anyway, the point is that this is just a flat out lie. Again, it's a lie. Many of these claims were misleading and some were utterly false. No, they weren't. Which claims were misleading and or false? That whole lab leak theory is not true. Okay, let me rephrase. We have no evidence to believe that COVID leaked from a lab. We just don't. Did it? Maybe, I suppose. If that evidence is forthcoming, great, I'll accept it just like that. It's just not there. Instead, those who spoke out and were censored were making very valid points. No, they weren't. And many were absolutely right. You know who was censored? I'll show you who was censored. It was people like this. Yeah, this clip right here. This guy. This is Christopher Key. He was, quote unquote, censored during COVID.
Into the court. We're going to educate you guys how to arrest the governor of Louisiana if he does not stand down on these illegal, unlawful mandates. Chlorine dioxide is that bleach that President Trump was talking about.
Yeah, when Trump said we need to inject bleach to cure COVID, you remember that?
They do not want you to know about it because it cured 500,000 people that had COVID.
Just delusion, bro.
With chlorine dioxide. We have the antidote, okay? And the antidote is even for those that have been vaccinated. And the research he's already sent me just blew me away, and they're going to tear me apart, but hey, they tear me apart all the time.
This guy is a vile scumbag, honestly. I was looking for a specific part here, though. So he's going to tell us how he's lived so long.
Practicing this for 20 years, and everybody's always said I'm cray-cray, and I am, but I'm crazy like a fox. Okay?
I don't know what that means.
Okay, and guys, when I tell you this, please, take it with a grain of salt, but go do the research, okay? Because this is going to just be like, there's no way. But the antidote, and I'm going to kill my credibility. What credibility do I have anyway? So, hey, the antidote that we've seen now, and we have tons and tons of research, is urine therapy.
Urine therapy, he says.
Okay, and what he has right now is all antidotal. I'm going to give you some...
Dude is drinking his own piss. He says later in this clip, he's been drinking his own piss for 20 years.
Stuff you gotta know. The chlorine dioxide was rough enough, but now drink urine.
I read something about the urine thing. So...
No, it's not sterile. You hear that, woman? It is not sterile. It's a misconception.
Every night my prayer since all this happened has been to find an antidote for this vaccine. Because guys...
Find an antidote for the vaccine. Not for COVID, but for the vaccine. These are the people that were, quote unquote, censored. Okay? And they were causing real damage to society. Like, they were hurting society. They were killing people with stupid shit like this. Drink bleach, really? That is his whole pitch here. Drink bleach and piss. Doesn't piss turn into ammonia eventually? Seems like he's trying to, like, turn himself into a chloramine gas bomb right now. God, these people. So those who spoke out and were censored were making very valid points, and many were absolutely right. No, they weren't. They weren't. The point is that free speech, no matter how controversial some opinions may be or seem, is the basis of our democracy. That I can agree with. We don't have free speech laws to protect us talking about how much we love apple pie. We have free speech laws to protect everybody from being prosecuted for criticizing anybody for anything. We should be allowed to criticize the government, particularly. And these people are allowed to criticize the government. The people we're reading this document here, this is them criticizing the government and stuff. And that's fine. You should be allowed to do this without going to jail. I'm all in. But don't just, like, make up. Oh my God, dude. All right, let's look at exposing the lies about civil rights in America. There's so much golden material here, and so little time to hit it all. I wish I had more time. When it comes to the bumpy journey of civil rights in America, some like to point their fingers at America being an example of an intolerant and oppressive nation. We already know how most of the Northern American colonies and states followed the teachings of the Bible, that every person was equal as one of God's children. Again, the Southern states justified slavery pretty straightforwardly with the Bible. We also know that these groups fought against slavery from the moment they set foot on the continent and led the charge to end the enslavement of others long before many other nations. No? Slavery had already been brought to an end in, like, a lot of other developed countries, like, long before the United States. But again, so who cares? I don't give a shit if I don't care what they're doing. I care that the United States had not ended slavery. This fact is only a tiny part of the whole story. The truth. As regrettable and immoral as the practice of slavery is, The reality is at the height of the terrible institution, only 5% of Americans enslaved others. Again, that's a lie. It's at the very least completely skewed. Meanwhile, from the very birth of America, the vast majority of Americans, driven by our core founding documents, began a steady march toward freedom for all people. You know, the founding fathers could have written slavery out of the Constitution. They could have made it like illegal from the start. They chose not to. Jefferson chose not to put that in there because he believed that it would eventually be removed. So, it would eventually be stopped, slavery would, in the U.S. And he believed that the United States would not be able to function as a cohesive federal government unless slavery was allowed. And he was probably right, honestly, but, there are some lines that need to be drawn. Anyway, let's keep reading. Oh, yeah, this bit about only 5% of Americans, that's just nonsense. Technically, I think it was only 5% of all of America, but the entire economy was based on it. 25% of Southern households owned at least one slave, and 40 to 50% of households owned slaves in Deep South states like Mississippi and South Carolina. Formerly enslaved black leaders like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman teamed up with President Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party to help win the Civil War and end slavery in America. Notice they're saying that the Republican Party did this. Why didn't they say the left-leaning party? Because that's what the Republican Party was at the time. It was the left. Abraham Lincoln would have been a Democrat today because there was a party switch. The left ended slavery in the United States, and the right, in retaliation, started the Ku Klux Klan, the Southern far-right Democrat extremists, until the 60s and 70s, when the parties flipped. Republicans became the right-wingers, Democrats became the left-wingers, after Nixon. Anyway, I can't help but notice that they're trying to associate Republican Party with good people. They helped win the Civil War and end slavery in America. After the war, segregation in the South, or the act of separating people by race using unfair laws, was defeated. Well, at least they're not defending segregation. That actually surprises me more than anything. The violent Ku Klux Klan, they were the conservatives, the far-right extremists, who had a model of race laws that Nazis used to build the Nuremberg laws. The violent KKK, built to terrorize blacks, was crushed by law enforcement. What? The KKK was law enforcement. You know the song, "Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses"? Cops are KKK, or they were at the time, certainly. A lot of cops still are, honestly. It's crushed by law enforcement during the Reconstruction era with the KKK Act of 1871. Led by the Republican Party, the first blacks, Native Americans, and Hispanics and women were elected to Congress and the Senate. Yeah, again, the left. It was the left. Led by the left. Those things happened. Not by the right. The most significant gains in prosperity for minorities in U.S. history happened under Presidents Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. What? Where the f*** did you get that? What is it? What are they even talking about? Let me see if I can get some answers here. The most significant gains in prosperity for minorities in the U.S. happened under Reagan and Trump. Here's the truth. 1981 to 1989, under Reagan, some growth occurred, but the benefits went primarily to the wealthy, and racial inequality worsened by many measures. So there's a finite amount of money in the United States, right, that's controlled by people in the United States. If that money was, thanks to Ronald Reagan, filtered up to the filthy rich, by and large. And it has been for the past 30 years because of him, or even 40 years. Under Trump, short-term prosperity metrics improved during Trump's first 3 years, but those trends started under Obama. Trump's policies, like tax cuts, overwhelmingly benefited the wealthy, not working-class minorities. The most transformative gains actually happened in the 60s and 70s. Civil rights era and Great Society programs. Black poverty rate dropped dramatically from 55% in 1959 to 30% by 1970. Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act 1965 removed legal barriers to economic and political participation. Affirmative action, school desegregation, and war on poverty programs opened up access to education and jobs. So this is it's pretty much just made up. The whole thing is just made up. In the 60s, America passed the Civil Rights Act, which guaranteed blacks the same rights and opportunities as any other United States citizen. Unfortunately, liberal voices in government began pushing a program of welfare and handouts to end poverty in inner cities. Oh my God, dude. But instead of increasing opportunity, these handouts weakened black ambition. Are you shitting me right now? Is this real? How fucking vile are these people? Dependency and violence in black communities only increased. This book is for children. That is fucking disgusting. Jesus, I wish I had more time to hit all of this stuff because it is wild, honestly. Anyway, yeah, tell me what you think about it in the comments. Maybe we'll go through more of it. Let me know if you want to see more.